Okay, thank you, brother. My name is David Brown. I'm the Masonic Ed Chairman for the state of Missouri. And what I want to share with you has to do with actually question 1 from what we did last night in our Socrates Cafe, talking about what's Masonic education on the jurisdictional level and what's Masonic education at the lodge level. I want to relate to you an experience that's happened within the last 2 weeks that has changed my paradigm. Several years ago, the Grand Lodge of Missouri began recognizing Prince Hall Masons, and we've had interaction between Grand Lodges. That has progressed, and the Grand Master of Prince Hall chose to come to our home lodge and bring several of his brethren from his home lodge for an esoteric teaching on the working tools of a fellowcraft. I'm sorry, of an entered apprentice. And not knowing what the specifics are in the rituals of Prince Hall, knowing that the way that we open and close and some of the floor movements and all of that are varied and don't transfer from Grand Lodge to Grand Lodge, we chose to go with an esoteric teaching. So I'll give you an example of what we did. We opened up the floor. We started with that the 24-inch gauge is an instrument made use of by operative masons to measure and lay out their work. Being divided into 24 equal parts, it is emblematic of the 24 hours of the day, which we are taught to divide into 3 equal parts, whereby I found 8 hours for the work of God and distress for the brethren, 8 for our usual vocations, and 8 for refreshment and sleep. Then we began to break that apart. You have a number 24. It's divided into 3 equal parts. So you have a line that's now divided into 3 separate lines. What can we do with the 3 separate lines? Well, there is an inference given in the explanation of how to spend our time. Usual vocations. That's what we do on a daily basis. That's what we work for. We usually start in the morning, and we usually end in the evening. In the lodge, the master gives the proper instruction for labors to begin the day. When you get to the south, you have refreshment, and then you're called on again to work. When you get to the west, the senior warden is to pay you wages. So usual vocations could be interpreted as the line from the east to the west. So now we have a line. Now, another explanation of another 8 hours is refreshment and sleep. The inference here is refreshment is what we're called on in the south to do. Sleep is nighttime in the north, or the Masonic area of darkness in the north. So we've established a second line. And now we've created a superficies. We have a plane. We have two lines, or 2 axes that have created a superficies. That leaves us our third line, and it is for the work of God and a distress-worthy brother. Our brethren and ourselves are on the earth, and God is in the heavens. It is the axis from earth to heaven. And therefore, we've gone from a superficies to a cube, which comprehends the whole. And that it blended together all of these things having to do with lines and geometry and cubes, and we created a square or cube. And the cube, we then, I refer to it as the Masonic theory of relativity, because you're using time to measure or to delineate space. And so space and time are part of the same aspect. From there, we began talking about all kinds of other things. We went to the point within the circle, between the two parallel lines, and just, brother, we spent an hour and a half talking about the esoterics of the layout of the lodge room, and I cannot express to you the harmony and concord that was in that room between representatives of two Grand Lodges. Afterwards, I had a brother come up to me afterwards, and he whispered in my ear, Prince Hall brother said, "Tonight, you inspired me to be a better man and a better Mason." And that was, you don't know how that hit me. The next morning, I woke up under a new paradigm. There is so much richness that can be extracted from our interaction with each other if we will get beyond what's factual and measurable in our teaching. And if we allow the freedom of thought and interaction to take place as people share what it means to me, what I see in it. This is what it does for me. This is how I'm inspired. And let our brethren talk with one another. That's Masonic education that you can't measure. And I don't ever want to try to measure that, because it takes place in the soul and it is eternal growth. And it makes an impact on that man that eventually will impact the lodge, that eventually will impact the community. So I hope that that kind of helps open the discussion a little bit for how you want to go. But brethren, I wanted to share that because it's changed my life, and I would challenge you to open up your concept of education to something on a broader level. Thank you.